Hi, my name is Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt. I will not accept a disappointing movie I do not deserve. So much like many of you, the whole X trilogy from Ty West, Ty West has really made a name for himself. I was already a really big fan of him prior to the X trilogy, and then Mia Goth absolutely has been amazing in these films and has completely stolen the show. And I thought X was great, definitely a really fun 70s style slasher. And even before we get to the slashing, I think it is a really fun movie about people just trying to make a dirty movie. And then Pearl absolutely fucking blew me away. I am obsessed with Pearl. I think that is a fucking 5 out of 5 movie. So naturally, I was really, really excited for the expansion of this story and to tell us more about the force that is MaXXXine. So MaXXXine was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, but I kind of thought it was pretty disappointing, if I'm being honest. So with that being said, today we're going to get into a bit of a mini review of MaXXXine and also rank every movie in the X trilogy. Cheers. So starting out my rank, I am starting from worst to best, and I would say MaXXXine is in the bottom for me. That was definitely the worst movie out of the trilogy, and it's super disappointing for me because, like I had said earlier, I was really excited for the growth and, development of this character. We fell in love with MaXXXine in X, in my opinion. At least I did. And I felt like she just was such a force, had such a big personality, and I was really rooting for her, and I knew she was a fucking star, right? And had a lot of potential. However, MaXXXine, I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything like that. It's supposed to follow directly after X. She's made a name for herself in the adult industry and is now trying to branch out and become a star, if you will, more than just a porn star by, branching into film. However, her past is haunting her and she cannot escape it in the, she's in Los Angeles in the 80s and people are dying around her and she is in danger. I thought this was a really fun start, and we get hints of there being oh, there's a killer, but then also the Night Stalker is here, good old Richard Ramirez. So I was beyond excited for MaXXXine, but it just really fell flat for me. It was super disappointing. It's really confusing to me because we have become, I guess I came to know and love Mia Goth as an actress and thought that she was just so great through this trilogy. I wasn't that familiar with her prior. Yet, she's kind of the star of the show. She's kind of why we want to watch these movies, right? They just really, I don't know, man. So they give her very minimal lines. They gave Mia Goth 0 lines. And the thing about it is that she goes she's hella non-verby the whole film, right? And the thing about that is that this is a movie about MaXXXine, right? And it felt like MaXXXine was just kind of sitting in the background while things happened around her and not really, interacting with anyone. A really good example is that there's this moment when we get this really long monologue type scene between her and the director of the film that she is going to star in. The director goes on this long-winded rant and is basically ended with, are you going to, show up? Are you going to do the thing? Are you going to make this feel worth it that I chose you? And she just goes yes. That's even given the trailer when something along the lines is being said is I hope whatever you have going on that's preventing you this from giving your all, I hope you squash it. And MaXXXine responds saying, I intend to. And that's basically how she interacts with everything throughout this film. We get this very Ty West style, like, opening monologue of Mia Goth auditioning for the film that she's going to be in. And then that's probably like the most she says for like the rest of the duration of the film. She's not really a character, and neither is anybody else in this movie. We get a couple kills at the beginning, and the thing is that like I'm entirely like detached from these characters, and there is a character that gets killed that I know that's supposed to be like the one that gets us. However, even then we don't fucking know this person at all, so you're just kind of like, okay, when it happens. And I just felt like MaXXXine was really underbaked and really ambitious. There's like several ways that the story could have unfolded, or like directions could have taken numerous times. However, it doesn't really go anywhere like satisfying or exciting. And ultimately, I did find MaXXXine to be very predictable. And all in all, like, this story was just such a mess. Like, it even got kind of boring for me in ways too, because we have this like long stint of time with just MaXXXine existing more or less, and like there's no tension or scares or like even anything like exciting or like a development. Even I could have taken this movie in any of the directions it wanted to go if it was exciting. However, it entirely lacked that, and I'm not even complaining that it isn't horror exactly, because I would say this takes on more of an 80s action flick, but even then it's still not satisfying in that regard. I'm just really disappointed. I feel like we could have gotten like so much more from this. A big issue I did find with this is that like a lot of the kills were off screen too. We see a lot of bodies, but not a whole lot of kills. And then when we do see kills, it's not very impactful either. It all just kind of happens, and like, I don't know, like, I'm just really disappointed. I just really wanted more from this, and it's a really unsatisfying end to this trilogy, because from my understanding, this is supposed to be the end of the trilogy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like there's like a lot of missteps. It was a mess, and like it didn't really commit to anything at all. I feel like if it committed to just anything, period, that it was trying to do, I would have had a lot better of a time here. I've seen like a lot of people saying that this film was rather like Giallo like, even then like kind of barely, and if we like committed to the Giallo vibe, I think it could have been really cool. Even if that made it longer, it would have been pretty sick to see it transpire in that way. And we do have some things that feels very Giallo like. For example, our killer, I feel like a lot of like things were introduced into the plot that were actually really pointless and very inconsequential. Like I mentioned earlier, that MaXXXine, she's dealing with her shit trauma, if you will, and like the Night Stalker is on the prowl. The whole Richard Ramirez subplot was completely irrelevant and inconsequential. I feel like it was trying to be like, MaXXXine was trying to be like an ode or like a love letter to the 80s. However, it just didn't really accomplish that for me, and it didn't really land. I'm really glad to see that a lot of people are enjoying this film and having a really good time, but I just don't see what anybody else was seeing with this, and I can see that it has been pretty divisive in that regard. This is probably the lowest rated overall, like most poor received out of the trilogy. I just wish I got out of it what others were getting out of it, just because I just really couldn't get into it. Like the first like bit of the movie, I was cued in, I was excited, I was there for that, and then it lost me like really fast, and that's really disappointing to me. And I kind of just walked out of the theater going, that's it, you know? And I just feel like because X and Pearl can so easily stand by themselves, is that the reason why we didn't need this film to happen if it wasn't going to be great. And like I said, I just will not accept a disappointing movie I do not deserve. Like, this was a really big letdown, because I don't know, like X and Pearl were some of like the most like exciting like movies of the 2020s for me. And even with X, I wasn't like huge on it like everybody else was initially, but I still had a really good time. I was skeptical of Pearl when it came out. Once I watched it, I was kind of like, damn, like, what was I on about? Like, this is so great. So, I don't know. I just left really disappointed. I think this is the worst out of the trilogy, and I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. It was it was pretty weak for me. And another thing that was really disappointing for me is that, like, it's an X trilogy, right? It's 3 films, they're all related. And obviously, Pearl is the prequel to X. It's about the horny old woman that they encounter in X, her origin story. I was hoping with the 3rd film we would also get like a tie-in into Pearl. However, it's like Pearl didn't even exist, which, again, all like X and Pearl can stand alone entirely by themselves. However, I was really hoping we get some kind of tie-in. Like, for example, I feel like something that would have been really interesting is, so we acknowledge that Pearl, she did not get to live the life she deserved. She did not get to become a star. And that's kind of, at least partially, as to why she's bitter, angry, and psycho, right? She killed people who she thinks is living the life that she should have got to. And meanwhile, MaXXXine, she's obviously a little fucked up and crazy from the trauma that happened in X. That she is a star. She got to be a star. She got to live the life that she deserves. So I was hoping there would be like some like tie-in or connection here where maybe MaXXXine, despite being able to live the life she deserves, is still unable to fight that urge to kill that was like awoken in her and X. I don't fucking know. I'm not a movie maker, but some kind of relevance to Pearl would have honestly been pretty helpful for me. We get like one scene, I believe, of her having like flashbacks to what happened at X. That's it, which I'm not really a big like flashback person at all. I don't like that. But I feel like even then, a lot of it was really inconsequential to the story when we were talking about like the previous events that occurred. And they, for the most part, felt pretty fucking irrelevant to what was happening in MaXXXine for the most part. And the fact that Pearl exists was entirely irrelevant too. Which leads me to my number 2 spot, which was X. I actually just rewatched all of these in preparation to go see MaXXXine. I felt pretty mid about X when I initially watched it. I kind of like still do in a way, but I still really like it, if that makes sense. I give X a 3.5 out of 5. I've kind of sat in that rating pretty consistently. I've seen X 3 times now. X is a really fun movie. My thing about it is like it's a really good period piece about like in terms of the 70s. You feel like you're really there. It's really feels like a really great homage to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like its previous greats. Characters were really believable and they're real characters, right? Whereas in MaXXXine, everybody's kind of just in the background and not really flushed out in any way. And in X, like there's chemistry, there's like a lot really going on for this movie in terms of the interactions we see on screen and like the big personalities that every single performer in that film has. I think that's part of what makes it so great. I've said this before and I'll say this again, is that I feel like I forget I'm watching a horror film when I'm watching X. I am fully immersed into this story about some people just trying to make a good porn and, you know, on the countryside or whatever. And I think that in itself, that's a fun story. But then it does go murderous and horror in a pretty like unexpected way for me. At least at the time, it was unexpected when I initially watched it. And I think the kills are great. And then MaXXXine, of course, is an amazing final girl. And I just like don't really have much negative to say about like X. I really do enjoy that film, and I feel like it was one of the more exciting films of the 2020s, right? And I feel like this is like the film that really like was like, whoa, that's exciting and fresh. And I feel like Ty West has had this reputation, at least for me, to make these movies that feel exciting and fresh, where I'm like, damn, okay, let's fucking go. That's a breath of fresh air. So again, that's another reason why MaXXXine had felt so disappointing to me as well. So we're supposed to understand, following the events of X, she's traumatized now. Whoa, but she's traumatized by being like non-verby and having no personality. Whereas I feel like although MaXXXine's trauma at the point in X isn't as severe as it is in MaXXXine, she still has that trauma that she's carrying with her and is such a big personality that like dominates the screen. We just don't get that. And I know I'm talking about X right now, but I'm also talking about MaXXXine. And like, I feel like Mia Goth just really brings like life to the screen. And in MaXXXine, she just kind of was just sitting there staring and just felt really bored. And I'm just so confused about what went wrong. Now, obviously, at my number one spot is Pearl. Pearl is like what the Joker was for incel men that it is for the BPD girlies.
Right, girl shit.
For me, like, Pearl is phenomenal. Like, I think that movie, I was really unsure. I wasn't sure. Here's the thing is, I wasn't sure if I gave a fuck about why the horny old lady from X is horny and evil, right? I wasn't sure if that was a story I really cared to have be told to me. However, I was gonna see it because I was gonna see it, you know? And by the end of it, I was in love. Like, that movie really spoke to me in several ways in terms of just like, well, one, being a woman and being a fucking insane woman. She is such a compelling character in the sense that the emotions are being like portrayed here by Mia Goth are so intense, and it's like so gut-wrenching to hear her screams and, you know, trying to convince people that she's a star. And like, the thing is that Pearl had me convinced that she was a fucking star. So I was equally as bummed and heartbroken to find out that she wasn't, right? I don't know. She's just so compelling as a character. And I felt like, although she's doing these super, like, you know, evil, murderous things and just like isn't good, you find that piece in her that really makes you feel for her and like kind of hurt for her. I think that's what really did for me. And like, that was like a really great character study of a character that we maybe wouldn't have really cared about otherwise. And like, despite her being evil, like I said, you still hurt and care for her, and she has you convinced that she deserves this life and that she will live it. And although she's doing all these horrible, horrible things, I am finding myself reasoning to justify it, and also I am starting myself finding reason as to why it's okay and that she can do whatever she wants. Like, you know, like, I really love that movie. I really resonated with it. I recommend it to everyone. Like, I am obsessed with Pearl, and that is a movie I give 5 out of 5. I really am. I am in love with that movie, and I felt like it was like absolutely everything. Again, I think it's because it's like specifically made for like the BPD girlies, but whatever. The thing is that, okay, Pearl is a really great character study, expanding on the character of Pearl, a character we may have not really given a shit about otherwise. And that's kind of what I was hoping we would get from MaXXXine. Like, maybe we get to know her a bit better and really see that personality. We just didn't get that. And I feel like this would have been a really good opportunity to make a film like that. Really show us who the fuck Maxine Winks is. And like, by the end of Pearl, my thing is like, I felt like she deserved that. Like, the life that she wanted to live. I felt like she was truly special, right? And I was really hoping to feel that way about MaXXXine, where I'm like, she is a fucking star. She is Maxine fucking Minx, right? But I did not feel that way out. By the end of MaXXXine, I was like, well, why should I care about Maxine? Really? So yeah, I just walked out of the theater really disappointed in MaXXXine. I don't know. I just really wanted more. I feel like we all deserve more as an audience. Good for those who really did take something away from this film, but I just wasn't having it. I just feel like it didn't really match the quality specialness really that X and Pearl had, and I'm pretty disappointed. So with that being said, my ranking goes with MaXXXine in the bottom at a 2 out of 5, X at the middle spot at 3.5 out of 5, and then Pearl in my top spot as a 5 out of 5. I fucking love Pearl. Anyways, if you went to go see MaXXXine, what did you guys think? And what is your ranking of the trilogy? Please let me know in the comments down below. Next week, I'm going to go see Longlegs. I go and see all my movies on the discount days on Tuesdays, so I'm always a little bit behind on all the new flicks, but I will be making a video on Longlegs. That's definitely probably the most anticipated movie for me this year. Their marketing campaign has been outrageous, and I am obsessed. So anyways, this has been me, Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt, and I am out.